Gnostic is kind of a vague category, but generally they try to subvert and pervert Christianity. They don't directly oppose Christianity. They find these subversive interpretations within it, which are heretical and blasphemous. In this other comment, Steve P., he was saying, I would like to add a few points. Christianity is not about the true Christ, as he did not like religion. He promoted something called the way. Religion really masks sun worship, worship of the sun, as this is what has been hidden from us. The cross is where the sun rises and where the sun sets along with the equinoxes. Yes, religion is bad. You're very naive. It's a control mechanism. How can you call a patriarchal religion the way to go? This is why we have wars and all things that relate to patriarchal society. Why did you malign female influence and equate it to rolling dead bodies down a pyramid? I was talking about the Aztecs before the Spanish arrived. I would really welcome doing a video or a chat. It's like you have divided deep. I think he meant to say it's like you have dived deep. His comment is not very grammatically good. It's one continuous sentence without any periods. It's just a bunch of commas. He's concluding here saying, I've dived deep, but not deep enough. Can I ask who you give your love to? The conditional father or the unconditional father? Question mark. Then he says, the Holy Roman Empire, the Vatican, gangsters dressed up as priest, singular, priest. These are evil people. The crucifix is not what you think it is. Have you ever read about Jesus and the Essenes? So let me go back from the beginning here. Christianity is not about the true Christ. Okay, so we know this guy's a subverter already. He did not like religion. So this is again the stupid, modern, not very well thought out critique of religion. You can't escape religion. Anyways, you're either going to have some pagan religion or the true religion. So take your pick. Jesus said, came to fulfill the law, which was laid down in the very religious Old Testament. All the rituals they were doing and all that stuff. There's nothing about discontinuing what essentially occurred in the old synagogue. I mean, Christ came to complete things and things did change. Animal sacrifice did end, but the basic idea that we saw in Solomon's temple, that never ended. Images can be used. All these, I mean, you're never going to escape images anyways. You can try to get away from it. You can try to get away from ritual, but you'll just fall into some form of pagan idols and whatever. I mean, Islam tried to do the same thing. It doesn't work. So there's nothing inherently bad about religion. He's getting into, what's it called, astrotheology? Astronomical take on it. I would recommend checking out the stream that David Patrick Harry did on this topic. He thoroughly debunks this sort of reasoning. I'll try to include a link to that stream. I listened to the whole thing. He completely destroys it. We don't deny that a lot of astronomical stuff can link up with historical events, with other realities, the spiritual reality of who is Christ. The cross in the horizon where the sun comes up or sets, there could be a connection to Christ there, but that doesn't disprove religion. That has nothing to do with disproving religion. That's not a logical follow, in other words. So all of these astronomical, some of them are just distractions. Some of them could be legitimate. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. But this is a way that you get pulled off from the truth because it's just sending you on a red herring. It's a control mechanism. Religion, he's saying, is a control mechanism. Then why are we more? Do you think we're more free? Do you think we're less controlled now in 2021 than we were at least up until the 50s? Now, I'm not a big fan necessarily of a lot of the changes even in the mid-20th century, but certainly religion was part of the fabric of our society up until some decades ago when it really just started to go away. Like what? So religion being a control mechanism, I mean, yeah, I guess I wouldn't want to necessarily be living in a Muslim country and you're under some theocracy. Clearly, religion was one of the last bastions defending the traditional world. So I guess you don't like traditions. So, but then you get the modern world, which just falls into scientism, a kind of pagan worship. So it's not like you could really escape the religion, but you don't expressly acknowledge it, which is even worse. Then that's even worse, because then that justifies things like abortion. It's not infant sacrifice. It's just a woman's choice. Freedom, liberty, human rights, right? What about the right of the baby? Oh, none of that matters. That's just showing you we have infinite sacrifice in a supposedly non-religious world. So I guess in that sense, yeah, religion can be a bad thing, but you are the naive one for thinking you can escape that. You shouldn't. It's not good to think that you would just throw out all these things. People just want to throw out everything that we were talking about, throwing out history. They want to dismiss history. They want to dismiss religion. Children of the modern liberal or ancient lie, recurring in the modern form of liberalism. And then he says, how can I call a patriarchal religion the way to go? This is why we have wars. So he's against the patriarchy. That's another red flag. Patriarchy is natural, good, healthy, from God, because the order is God, man, and then woman, child, animals. This is the grand hierarchy in the world. That's why monarchy is the best way to go. Having wars is not great. We live in a fallen world. So death itself is not natural. I was telling someone, a young lady I know, I was telling her recently that death is not natural. And she found that hard to accept. I guess it would appear strange, but again, nature is not a neutral term. Nature is value-laden, or theory-laden, you might say. When you say nature, it's not just, oh, that's a neutral thing that anyone can just see. This is the same problem with just showing the Bible onto the street on someone, as if it's just, theory neutral. Like no one has theory goggles that you're going to see things through, which you are, inevitably. No, it's the same mistake. Nature changed with the fall of Adam and Eve, and we inherited death. So war involves death. And sometimes you have to protect your people. Sometimes there is just war. So what are you talking about? This guy doesn't like the patriarchy. This guy doesn't like the concept of any war, apparently. As much as I, don't want people to have to go to war. But, that's ridiculous. This is the sort of thinking, oh, abolish the police. How do you think that's going to turn out? Do you think the vacuum of power will not be filled with something very dark if you try to abolish something like that? Did you ever think that the concept of having a war by patriarchal men leading their patriarchal armies could actually ensure peace in the world? Now, I know the Antichrist may do that too, they say, but we can see in history that strong leaders can ensure peaceful periods where you have less war, but the threat of war is often necessary to maintain that. And then he says, I maligned female influence. Yes, because we have to avoid falling under the influence of the mother goddess, which is one of the forms that Satan's deceptions takes and has taken over the ages in many of the pagan cultures. They would have worship some form of a mother goddess, some female, as divine, as God, not as there is a female place in the spiritual world, and that is filled by Theotokos, mother of God, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I don't know. In the Greek word, in the Roman Catholic tradition, the Virgin Mary, and I've read some book that they say, oh, it was the resurgence of the mother goddess. It was this pagan thing that came up in the Middle Ages. And I could sort of maybe see some of that argument in the Roman Catholic side. But of course, the perspective is much larger when we look at also the Orthodox tradition. So there is some place for the female in that spiritual world. And God itself is masculine. The Trinity is, three masculine described as He, the Holy Spirit, the Son of God, He, God the Father, He. But even God Himself is actually beyond male and female. It's transcended. I don't want to call it it. He, it's personal nature, but still transcended, beyond being, not a being, or even the being. That would be heretical, but beyond being. The key point is that the female is not divine. Holy, perhaps, but that's not the same thing as divine. So by placing a woman in the place of the God, the creator God, or the ultimate power, that's the same thing as Mother Nature. Mother Nature is also the pagan mother goddess. And you think she's going to love you so much and it's going to be so great, but then if you put her in charge, it's going to equal a lot of blood, a lot of sacrifice. It's not going to be good. The society is not going to move ahead. Now, I'm talking overall in a spiritual sense, but this would also be playing itself out in real historical physical terms in the relations between men and women and the kinds of men you have in your society. What degree they allow themselves to be dominated by women. So you got to be a little more Chad Steve P. You gotta just say it like it is. So Steve P, I don't know if I want to do a video or chat with you, but you're welcome to continue to share your thoughts. And then he's asking at the end of his thing, who I give my love to, the conditional father or the unconditional father. I don't know what he means by that. You have your own presuppositions, so I don't really know what you mean by that terminology. But I believe in the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That is God. And so Jesus Christ is part of the Trinity, but he's eternal. He's always existed. He wasn't just a man. He had a fully human nature and a fully divine nature, both man and God, simultaneously. Not one or the other, not some Arian, not Arianism, none of that, not Nestorianism. Man and God, that's very important. He's mentioning the Holy Roman Empire, the Vatican, gangsters dressed up as a priest. These are evil people. Well, yeah, but I'm not Roman Catholic, so what are you talking about? The Vatican. Do you think we agree with the Vatican? No. But still, there's things in Roman Catholicism like the concept of having priests I agree with. They've preserved a lot. They preserved a lot of the old traditions until fairly recently in the 20th century. Then they really started becoming corrupted. Their concept, they don't allow priests to marry. And they have had more of these scandals. I'm not saying that's necessarily the reason why, because some people for spiritual reasons choose to remain celibate, but it's different. It's a different tradition. They innovated in the theology a little bit, maybe not as much as Protestants, but they did begin innovating from the Middle Ages. Roughly speaking, that explains the eventual schism between East and West over these matters. So I agree that there's evil people out there, but when you hear of this real church or real organization with these old traditions, you just assume that this organizational structure is evidence of this all being evil people. It's like, no, man, you're really mixed up here. You're off on all these things. The crucifix is not what you think it is. Oh, is that so? So that's the same as Jesus not being what you think it is. Have I read about Jesus and the Essenes? No, I haven't. I looked briefly what that was. It was some Looks like some Jewish group that they're thinking influenced Jesus. Like, I don't know. I don't have any reason based on what you said here to really look into that more, but I mean, you can enlighten me. So, hasta luego, amigos.